Interestingly, an unusually large amount of scrambling on the part of the former president's defense. This past weekend, you may recall, Donald Trump fired his original legal defense team for this trial. It was reported by Axios to have happened after there was some dispute as to whether or not he would pay them. Multiple news organizations also reported that he had also insisted that his defense lawyers try to advance the argument at trial that he is secretly still president, that he secretly won the election, and Joe Biden shouldn't be in the Oval Office. And what, he should be deposed by a violent mob, perhaps? He fired his first defense team the weekend before the trial formally started, in part, perhaps, because he wouldn't pay them, and in part because they wouldn't argue that. He replaced that initial defense team with two new lawyers, Bruce Castor and David Schoen. Now, I have to apologize here for a second. Last night, when discussing the president's new lawyer, David Schoen, I slipped of my own accord and called him Doug Schoen instead of David Schoen. The reason that was in my head is because Doug Schoen was a Fox News guy forever, remember? Now I think he's gone to Newsmax. But that's why I had the name Doug in my head. David Schoen, the president's lawyer, is a different man entirely. I am sorry for that slip. But the reason we are talking about Mr. Schoen, David Schoen, President Trump's lawyer, is because a few days ago he asked for the impeachment trial schedule to be changed to accommodate his religious practice. He strictly observes the Jewish Sabbath and therefore cannot work after sundown on Friday or all day on Saturday. The Senate received that request and agreed to it. They changed the Senate impeachment trial schedule. Instead of their usual pause on Sunday, they decided they would pause on Saturday to accommodate Mr. Schoen. They announced that and formalized it yesterday. And then after that, at the end of the day, Mr. Schoen said, never mind. He submitted a new letter withdrawing his request that the trial be paused on Saturday, saying instead that his colleagues on the president's defense team would happily cover the trial that day and he would sit it out, but it's fine if the trial kept going. Now, we don't know why he changed his mind. He had asked for a large accommodation and gotten it and then gave it back. But now the end result, and this is interesting, is that the Senate trial of President Trump is going to run 7 days a week. That wasn't initially going to happen. They were going to take Sundays off before Schoen asked for this change. After Schoen asked for the change, they decided, OK, we'll work Sundays. Now David Schoen has rescinded his religious observance request to not work on Saturdays. And so they've decided, OK, well, we'll work Saturdays, too. They're going to go 7 days. There had been lots of noise on the Democratic side that they were worried about the trial stretching on too long, getting in the way of President Biden confirming his cabinet secretaries and getting other work done. Well, the end result of whatever went a little haywire there on the president's defense team with Mr. Schoen, with him submitting that request, having it acceded to, and then withdrawing it anyway, the end result is that the Democrats in the Senate now get to run the trial 7 days a week with no days off, so they're going to be able to finish it faster, which is what they wanted. Also, somewhat quietly on the sidelines of the impeachment trial today, Senator Schumer's office confirmed to reporters that even though the impeachment trial is going to be running every day now, 7 days a week until it's over, they have also figured out a way to keep confirmation hearings for Biden cabinet nominees ongoing at the same time. So even as the Senate trial started today, there were still confirmation hearings today for more Biden nominees, which means the Beltway press whiffed on this one. I mean, for all those weeks of hand-wringing we saw about whether an impeachment trial of President Trump would sidetrack or even derail the ability to get the Biden administration's agenda moving, well, now they are proceeding with a 7-day-a-week trial while confirming nominees at the same time. They're on track to get the massive $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan that Biden wants passed by the end of the month, a week before the end of the month, possibly, all at once. They're doing it all at once. Not bad. The former president is apparently, meanwhile, still adding lawyers to his defense team, even as the trial is now underway. Yesterday, we learned that he had made a last-minute addition of a new lawyer named Van der Veen, Michael Van der Veen. Philadelphia Inquirer reporting today that Mr. Van der Veen recently sued President Trump. Really recently, in the lead up to the 2020 election, he sued Trump, arguing that Trump and his campaign were trying to suppress the vote in Democratic-leaning areas in Pennsylvania. Mr. Van der Veen also defended a college student who was prosecuted for trying to hack into an IRS database to obtain Trump's tax records. That student telling the Inquirer today that Mr. Van der Veen described President Trump to him as a, quote, effing crook. But he didn't just say F. Apparently, he said it for real. And now that man represents Donald Trump in his impeachment trial. No word on whether former President Trump knew these facts about his new lawyer when he was hired while the trial was already underway. But that's weird. The Inquirer and NBC News also reporting today that Trump just added 2 additional lawyers to his team, again, as the trial is underway. Added a lawyer named William Brennan and a lawyer named Julianne Bateman. So now maybe there's 5 lawyers on the Trump team. But again, it is odd that they are being added even as the trial is starting. I'm sure given what happened to the last 5 lawyers that President Trump fired just last weekend, I'm sure these new ones got some kind of ironclad agreement that they're all going to be paid, right? They must have. You'd be crazy not to get that. But for a client who is famous for not paying his lawyers, for going ballistic on them and saying they're terrible and they don't deserve to be paid and saying he's not going to pay them, there was a moment today when the president's defense team started to present its case. Admit it, if you watched the trial, this crossed your mind. There was a moment when you maybe thought, as the president's defense team started their defense, didn't you maybe think, is Donald Trump really going to pry open his wallet and pay the bill when it comes for these legal services? For this guy, really? Is he going to pay?
My name is Bruce Castor. I am the lead counsel for the 45th President of the United States. I was an assistant DA for such a long time, I keep saying prosecutor, but I do understand the difference. I don't want to steal the thunder from the other lawyers, but Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. When you're driving down the street and you look over at your wife and you say, hey, you know what? That guy's about to drive through the red light and kill that person. We still know what records are, right? On the thing you put the needle down on and you play it. And here's little Bruce, 8, 9, 10 years old, listening to this back in the late 60s. There isn't a member in this room who has not used the term, I represent the great state of fill in the blank. Why? Because they're all great? I know you aren't allowed to talk, but I don't see either one of them jumping up and saying I'm wrong about that. And there are certainly others probably that are smaller countries that lasted for less time that I don't know about off the top of my head. I saw a headline, Representative so-and-so seeks to walk back comments about, I forget what it was, something that bothered her. Instead of floodgates, I was going to say originally it will release the whirlwind, which is a biblical reference. I subsequently learned since I got here that that particular phrase has already been taken, so I figured I better change it to floodgates. No one alive had ever lived through a presidential impeachment. Not unless some of you are 150 years old. Senators, sometime in the past, realized that you can't do that because you passed a rule that says, hey, you can't do that. So that's why it's flawed. I don't want to steal the thunder from the other lawyers, but Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. Nobody says it that plainly, but unfortunately I have a way of speaking that way.
I know I put in that one bit about Nebraska twice. Like, Nebraska, you're going to hear, is quite a judicial thinking place. And you can stop right now. I have already designed the T-shirt. Nebraska, you just call me. I will let you use it for free or for a very, very small fee. Bruce Castor was the man in the spotlight today for the president's defense. He led the president's defense today. It was impossible to follow what he was talking about. But don't take it from me. Do take the T-shirt idea from me, but do not take that assessment from me. Take it from Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, who had previously voted that the Senate shouldn't put President Trump on trial because he's a former official. Senator Cassidy of Louisiana changed his mind today, not only thanks to what he heard from the House impeachment managers, which we will get to, but also thanks to whatever that was from the president's defense.
So, Senator, you were the one Republican who changed votes to a yes. What happened? What changed your mind?
I said I'd be an impartial juror. Anyone listening to those arguments, the House managers were focused